Autobiography of a Yogi, by Paramahansa Yogananda. Introduction. Imagine for a moment that you're sitting in your room, grieving the loss of the most important person in your life. Your mentor, your guide, the one you loved like a father, is gone. You buried him with your own hands. The grief is a physical weight, an ache that never leaves. Then, one afternoon, the room begins to change. The ordinary sunlight pouring through the window transforms into a blinding, beautiful radiance. And in the center of that light, a figure takes shape. It's him. Standing before you, flesh and blood, with the same loving smile you thought you'd never see again. He speaks your name. And in that moment, everything you thought you knew about life, death, and reality itself is turned upside down. This isn't a scene from a movie. This is a real event from one of the most extraordinary books ever written, Autobiography of a Yogi. Since it was first published in 1946, this book has quietly become a spiritual classic, a secret handshake among seekers and thinkers all over the world. It sold over 4 million copies and has been translated into more than 50 languages. It was the only book Steve Jobs had on his iPad, which he reread every single year. It was the book that George Harrison of the Beatles handed out to all his friends, saying, "You have to read this." It has inspired countless artists, scientists, and leaders who felt there was something more to life than what we see on the surface. The author, Paramahansa Yogananda, wasn't just a writer. He was a pioneer who brought the ancient science of yoga and meditation to the West long before it was a mainstream trend. He came to America in 1920, a young man with a divine mission, to show that the spiritual truths of the East and the scientific progress of the West were not enemies, but two sides of the same coin. This book is his story. But it's more than just a life story. It's a journey into a world of saints who can be in two places at once, who can materialize palaces from thin air, and who have conquered death itself. It's a world where the laws of physics are not broken, but are shown to be just one small part of a much larger, more mysterious set of laws that govern the universe. Today, we are going to walk that journey with him. And by the end of our time together, I promise you this, you won't just have heard some incredible stories. You will have gained a new lens through which to see your own life. You'll understand the hidden science behind miracles, the true meaning of yoga, and the incredible, untapped power that lies dormant within your own consciousness, waiting for you to discover it. So, take a deep breath, and let's begin. Book summary. Our story starts not with a birth, but with a memory. A memory from before birth. Imagine being a helpless infant, unable to walk or speak, but having clear, vivid recollections of a previous life. You remember being a yogi, a master of meditation, living high in the Himalayan snows. This was the reality for the boy who would become Paramahansa Yogananda. He was born Mukunda Lal Ghosh in 1893, into a loving, high-caste family in Gorakhpur, India. But from his first moments, he felt like a stranger in a strange land. He felt a deep, pulling homesickness for the mountains, for a life of spiritual solitude he couldn't explain. This feeling, this spiritual thirst, was nurtured by his mother. She wasn't just a parent, she was his first teacher, his dearest friend. She filled his childhood with stories from the ancient scriptures and, most importantly, she placed a small picture of a great master, Lahiri Mahasaya, on their family altar. This picture would become a guiding light in his life. As a young boy, he would meditate before this image, and sometimes, the photograph would seem to come alive. The saint's eyes would blink, and his living form would step out of the frame, sit before him, and then dissolve back into the picture. He felt a love for this master he had never met in person, a connection that transcended time and space. This connection wasn't just imagination. At the age of 8, Mukunda was struck with Asiatic cholera, a fatal disease in those days. The doctors had given up all hope. His mother, in a final act of faith, told him to gaze at the picture of Lahiri Mahasaya on the wall. "Bow to him mentally," she pleaded. "If you really show your devotion, your life will be spared." As he gazed at the photograph, he saw a blinding light envelop the room and his own body. In an instant, the nausea, the pain, all the terrible symptoms vanished. He was completely healed. He knew, with a certainty that would shape the rest of his life, that a hidden world of divine power was real, and that it could be accessed through devotion. But this profound connection to the divine was soon met with profound loss. When he was just 11, his mother, the center of his world, passed away. The grief was an abyss. He felt adrift, his heart broken. It was in this darkness that his older brother revealed a secret his mother had left for him. Years earlier, a wandering sage had come to their home. He told her that her time on earth was short, and he gave her a prophecy. He said he would materialize a silver amulet for her, which she was to pass on to her son, Mukunda, when he was ready to renounce the world and begin his search for God. The sage told her, "When it has served its purpose, it shall vanish." The next day, as she meditated, the silver amulet appeared in her hands. Now, holding this mysterious talisman, Mukunda felt his destiny ignite. The amulet was a physical link to the unseen masters who were guiding him. His desire to leave home, to find God, became an all-consuming fire. His family, understandably, saw this as youthful rebellion. His father was a practical man, a high-ranking executive in the railway. He loved his son, but he wanted him to finish his education, to live a normal life. This set the stage for a classic conflict: the pull of the world versus the call of the spirit. Mukunda tried to run away to the Himalayas not once, but twice. His first attempt was a comical failure. Dressed in new European clothes to disguise themselves, he and two friends set out for the mountains. One friend, terrified by Mukunda's casual talk of befriending tigers, deserted them at the first train station. The other was captured with him, after his clever older brother, Ananta, played detective and tracked them down. It seemed every door to his spiritual quest was being slammed shut. He was a prisoner of his family's love and his father's expectations. During this frustrating time, he encountered a series of fascinating, and sometimes strange, holy men. These encounters were not accidents, they were lessons. There was the perfume saint, a yogi named Ganda Baba who could materialize any fragrance at will. With a simple word, he made the scent of roses appear on Mukunda's palm, and the fragrance of jasmine blossom from an odorless flower. He could even materialize tangerines inside of bread. Mukunda was amazed, but also skeptical. Is it necessary to prove God with such tricks? He wondered. He learned that spectacular powers were not the same as true wisdom. They were a sideshow, a distraction from the real path. Then there was the Tiger Swami, a man of incredible physical strength who had once wrestled tigers with his bare hands. He had been a famous showman, but a prophecy from a saint warned him that his pride would lead to his downfall. In a brutal match against a ferocious tiger named Raja Begum, he was terribly mauled, but victorious. The experience changed him. Lying near death for 6 months, he realized the foolishness of his pride. He gave up fighting outer tigers and began the harder work of taming the inner prowlers, the passions of the human mind. From him, Mukunda learned that true strength is not in the body, but in the will. And there was the levitating saint, Bhattari Mahasaya, a sage who had mastered the ancient science of breath control, or pranayama, to such a degree that his body would float in the air. But what impressed Mukunda more than the levitation was the saint's profound peace and wisdom. "Do not mistake the technique for the goal," the sage told him, reminding him that spiritual exercises are just tools. the real purpose is to find God. Each of these men was a signpost, pointing the way, but none was his master. The amulet he wore was a constant reminder, a silent hum of destiny. He knew his true guru was out there, waiting for him. But where? After a period of intense spiritual anguish at a hermitage in Benares, where he felt misunderstood and alone, he went to his attic room one dawn, resolved to pray until he got an answer. He cried out to the Divine Mother of the Universe, begging for a true guru. Hours passed. His pleas grew more desperate. Suddenly, he felt his body lift, and a divine, womanly voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. "Thy master cometh today." Just then, a young boy from the hermitage called him, telling him he was needed for an errand. Annoyed at the interruption, but feeling a strange new peace, he followed the boy out into the bustling streets of Benares. They walked through the crowded markets, a chaotic swirl of sights and sounds. Then, as they passed a narrow, inconspicuous lane, Mukunda felt an unexplainable urge to turn his head. At the far end of the lane, a man stood motionless, dressed in the ochre robes of a Swami. He had a leonine head, flowing locks, and a pointed beard. His eyes were fixed on Mukunda. A shock of recognition went through him. It was the face he had seen in 1,000 visions, the face he had been searching for his entire life. Doubt crept in. "You're just imagining it," a voice in his head said. He tried to walk on, but his feet grew heavy, as if turned to stone. He turned back, and the feeling vanished. He turned away again, and the heaviness returned. It was a magnetic pull, an undeniable force drawing him back to that lane. He handed his parcels to his bewildered companion and ran. Wing-shod, he flew back to the lane. The quiet figure was still there, gazing at him. A few more steps, and he was at the man's feet. "Gurudeva," he cried. "Divine teacher." The man's voice was tremulous with joy. "Oh my own, you have come to me," he said, again and again. "How many years I have waited for you." In that moment, oneness of silence fell between them. Words were useless. With an unbreakable insight, Mukunda knew, this man knew God, and he would lead him to God. The past, present, and future seemed to merge. This was not the first son to find him at these holy feet. The master's name was Sri Yukteswar Giri. He led Mukunda to his temporary home, his hand holding his new disciples. "I will give you my hermitages and all I possess," he said. Mukunda replied, "Sir, I come for wisdom and God contact. Those are your real treasures." Sri Yukteswara looked at him with unfathomable tenderness. "I give you my unconditional love." Then he asked, "Will you give me the same unconditional love?" "I will love you eternally, Gurudeva." This was the beginning. But the path of a disciple is not always easy. Sri Yukteswara's first instruction was a test. He told Mukunda to go back home, to return to his family and enroll in college. Mukunda was dismayed. Was he to be pursued by books his whole life? But he had given his word. He agreed. This first act of obedience sealed the bond between them. In that moment, he felt an eternal shelter. The long, vague search was finally over. For the next 10 years, Mukunda lived a life of two worlds. He was a college student in Calcutta, but his real life was in his master's hermitage in Serampuri. His attendance at college was, let's say, inconsistent. The pull of the ashram was too strong. Sri Yukteswara's training was, in Yogananda's own words, drastic. He was a perfectionist, hypercritical of his disciples. He wasn't there to make them feel good, he was there to break their egos. "Good manners without sincerity are like a beautiful dead lady," he would say. He seemed to know Mukunda's every thought. Once, during a deep philosophical discourse, he stopped and said, "You are not here." Mukunda protested, "But I haven't moved. I can repeat every word you've said." Sri Yukteswara replied, "Nevertheless, in your mental background, you were creating 3 institutions. One on a plain, one on a hilltop, and one by the ocean." Mukunda was stunned. Those were the exact daydreams floating in the back of his mind. This was the level of his guru's awareness. There was no hiding. The master was like a divine surgeon, cutting away every imperfection, every piece of vanity, every subconscious reservation. Yogananda said he shook many times under the weight of this disciplinary hammer, but he was grateful for every blow. The hard core of the human ego, he realized, can't be removed gently. It must be shattered. But beneath the stern exterior was a boundless love and a playful wisdom. One day, Master staged an elaborate cauliflower robbery. He had Mukunda buy 6 prized cauliflowers for a special dinner. Then, he predicted that one would be stolen because Mukunda had forgotten to lock the back door. He pointed out a crazy man down the road and, using his will, directed the man to walk to the ashram, enter the unlocked door, crawl under the bed, and steal one single cauliflower, leaving behind the gold rings and money lying in plain sight. Sri Yukteswar then dissolved into laughter, explaining to his bewildered disciple that the poor man had an intense craving for a cauliflower. He was teaching a lesson about material carelessness, but also demonstrating the hidden laws of the universe, that thoughts are vibrations, and a master can tune into them like a human radio, both receiving and broadcasting. And then, there was the training in faith. Sri Yukteswar predicted that the stars were about to cause a severe liver ailment that would last for 6 months. He had Mukunda wear an astrological bangle of silver and lead, telling him it would shorten the illness to 24 days. Exactly 1 month later, the illness struck with excruciating pain. For 23 days, Mukunda suffered in agony. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he traveled to Benares to see his guru. Sri Yukteswara greeted him calmly. "You say you have pain, I say you have none. How can such contradictions exist?" At his master's words, the agony vanished instantly, as if it had never been. Through these experiences, Mukunda was learning that the world is not what it seems. That mind is the wielder of muscles, that thought is a force like gravity, and that the entire cosmos is a materialized thought of the Creator. The pinnacle of his training came one morning when his mind was restless, his thoughts scattered like birds. Sri Yukteswara called him. "Poor boy," he said, with deep compassion, "the mountains couldn't give you what you wanted. Your heart's desire shall be fulfilled." He struck Mukunda gently on the chest. In that instant, his body became immovably rooted. His breath was drawn out of his lungs as if by a giant magnet. Soul and mind broke free from their physical prison and streamed out like a fluid, piercing light. The flesh felt dead, yet he knew he had never been more alive. His sense of identity expanded to embrace the atoms of the room, the people on the streets outside, the roots of the trees in the ground. He experienced a vast, spherical sight. He could see in all directions at once. Everything he looked at, his master's body, the pillared courtyard, the trees and the sunshine, began to tremble and vibrate, until all of it melted into a luminescent sea of light. An oceanic joy broke upon the calm, endless shores of his soul. He realized that the Spirit of God is exhaustless bliss, and his body is countless tissues of light. He saw the entire cosmos, galaxies, nebulae, solar systems, glimmering within the infinitude of his own being. He heard the creative voice of God resounding as Aum, the vibration of the cosmic motor. This was the state of samadhi, or cosmic consciousness. When his breath returned and he came back to his small body, it felt like a humiliating cage. His guru was standing before him, calm and unpretentious. "You must not get overdrunk with ecstasy," Sri Yukteswar said. "Much work yet remains for you in the world. Come, let us sweep the balcony." He was teaching the secret of balanced living. The soul must stretch over the cosmic abysses, while the body performs its daily duties. This experience was not a one-time event. His guru taught him how to enter this state at will. It was the ultimate proof of what the scriptures taught, that man is not a mortal body, but a limitless, immortal soul. Yogananda's training was now moving towards its purpose. He had been chosen for a special mission, one that had been set in motion long before he was born. The architect of this mission was a mysterious, deathless master who lives, even to this day, in the high Himalayas. His name is Babaji. Babaji is the guru of Lahiri Mahasaya, who was the guru of Sri Yukteswar. He is a Mahavatar, or great avatar, a prophet sent to earth with a special dispensation. He has retained his physical form for centuries, perhaps millenniums, appearing as a youth of about 25. He works in humble obscurity, guiding the spiritual evolution of humanity. Yogananda tells us the incredible story of how Babaji first initiated Lahiri Mahasaya. It happened in 1861 at Raniket in the Himalayas. Lahiri Mahasaya, a government accountant, was mysteriously transferred there. One day, a voice called his name. He followed it up a mountain and met a young man who looked remarkably like himself. It was Babaji. With a gentle touch on his forehead, Babaji awakened the memories of Lahiri Mahasaya's past life. He had been Babaji's disciple in that life, and had spent many years meditating in that very cave. "For more than 3 decades I have waited for you to return to me," Babaji told him, his voice ringing with celestial love. That night, to fulfill a long-forgotten desire from his disciple's subconscious mind, Babaji materialized a vast, golden palace out of the mountain air. It was a spectacle of unparalleled grandeur, studded with jewels and filled with saints. It was in this ethereal palace that Lahiri Mahasaya was initiated into the science of Kriya Yoga. When the ceremony was over, the palace vanished, its atoms released back into the thought essence from which it had sprung. Babaji's mission for Lahiri Mahasaya was not to remain a hermit in the mountains, but to return to the world and live as a householder, an office worker, and to serve as an example that the highest spiritual attainments are not barred to the family man. He gave him permission to give the sacred Kriya technique freely to all who humbly ask for help. This was a turning point for humanity. The ancient, secret science of yoga was now being made available to the masses. This legacy was passed from Lahiri Mahasaya to Sri Yukteswar, and now, it was to be carried to the West by Yogananda. Babaji himself had foretold this. Years earlier, at a religious festival, he had met Sri Yukteswar and told him, "Some years hence, I shall send you a disciple whom you can train for yoga dissemination in the West. The vibrations there of many spiritually seeking souls come flood-like to me." Looking at Yogananda, Sri Yukteswar said, "My son, you are the disciple that, years ago, Babaji promised to send me." The call to America came in 1920, as Yogananda was meditating in a dusty storeroom at his school for boys in Ranchi. He had a panoramic vision of Western faces, a vast multitude gazing at him intently. That very day, he received an invitation to serve as the Indian delegate to an international congress of religious liberals in Boston. His father, shocked, asked who would finance the trip. "The Lord will finance me," Yogananda replied. The next day, his father handed him a large check, not as a father, but as a faithful disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya. But Yogananda needed one more confirmation. He prayed with an adamant will to hear the voice of God. He prayed until he felt his brain would split. At that moment, a knock came at the door. He opened it to find a young renunciate who looked exactly like a younger Lahiri Mahasaya. "Yes, I am Babaji," the man said, answering his unspoken thought. "Our Heavenly Father has heard your prayer. He commands me to tell you, follow the behests of your guru and go to America. Fear not, you will be protected." The deathless guru had come in person to bless the mission. And so, in August of 1920, Paramahansa Yogananda sailed for America. His first public lecture, given in English on the ship, was a disaster. At first, he stood speechless for 10 minutes while the audience laughed. Then, in silent desperation, he prayed to his master. "You can speak," a voice answered in his consciousness. His thoughts suddenly fell into a friendly relationship with the English language, and he spoke for 45 minutes, captivating the audience. He was learning that his guru was always with him, beyond the barriers of time and space. He spent 15 years in America, traveling from coast to coast, giving lectures, teaching classes, and initiating tens of thousands into Kriya Yoga. He established a headquarters in Los Angeles, on a hilltop he had seen in a vision years before in Kashmir. He befriended great souls like the botanist Luther Burbank, whom he called an American saint. He showed that science and spirituality were not at odds. Burbank, the man who talked to his plants, creating a spineless cactus through vibrations of love, understood the deep truths of yoga. In 1935, a message came from his guru, traveling 10,000 miles in an instant. "I have waited for you patiently for 15 years. Soon I shall swim out of the body. Yogananda, come." He returned to India. The welcome was overwhelming, but the most profound moment was his reunion with Sri Yukteswar. His secretary, Mr. Wright, an American who accompanied him, described the scene. No words were spoken, just the most intense feeling expressed in the mute phrases of the soul, their eyes sparkling with the warmth of renewed soul union. During this final visit, Sri Yukteswar bestowed upon him the highest monastic title of Paramahansa, meaning Supreme Swan, a symbol of spiritual discrimination. "My task on earth is now finished," he said. "You must carry on." Yogananda's heart was in fear. He was with his guru for several more months, but the hints of his passing were always there. He was visiting the Kumbh Mela, a massive religious festival, when the final call came. On March 9, 1936, Sri Yukteswar consciously left his body. Yogananda was devastated. He felt a black, brooding stream of grief that polluted the inner river of bliss he had known for so long. He returned to his guru's hermitage in Puri and conducted the solemn burial rites. "Where has that divine sage gone?" he cried silently from his tormented spirit. Weeks later, his planned voyage back to America was unexpectedly canceled. He was in a hotel room in Bombay, in the depths of his sorrow. And it was there, on June 19, 1936, that the room filled with an unearthly light. And his master appeared before him, resurrected, in a body of flesh and blood. "I am the same," Sri Yukteswar told him. "This is a flesh and blood body. From the cosmic atoms I created an entirely new body, exactly like the one you laid beneath the sands at Puri." He had not returned to Earth, but to a high astral planet called Hiranyaloka, where he was serving as a savior to help advanced beings work out their astral karma. For 2 hours, he explained the secrets of the afterlife, the nature of the astral and causal worlds, the laws of karma and reincarnation between the spheres, the process by which souls evolve and finally merge back into the infinite spirit. He explained that this physical world is a dream of God, his earthly body had been a dream image, and now, his resurrected body was on a finer dream planet of God. "Differentiate, my son," he said, "between dreams and reality." He commissioned Yogananda to tell the world this story of his resurrection, to give new hope to a death-fearing world. Tell all. His voice boomed as he vanished. Whosoever knows by realization that your earth is a dream of God can come to the finer dream planet of Hiranyaloka and find me. The grief was gone, replaced by a torrential bliss. The sorrow of parting had been a stark shame. He now understood that his guru had never left him, and never would. Yogananda continued his work, returning to the West, but his life was forever changed. He had seen beyond the final curtain. He had seen the conqueror of death. And he carried that certainty, that fire, with him for the rest of his days, sharing the message that what his master had done was not a miracle for one, but a promise for all. A promise that we are not these frail bodies. We are deathless, we are infinite, we are spirit. Commentary. So what do we take away from a story like this? A story so filled with events that challenge our everyday understanding of the world. It's easy to get lost in the miracles, the levitating saints, the materialized palaces, the resurrection. And they are, without a doubt, a core part of the book's power. They're meant to shake us out of our materialistic slumber, to make us question the limits we've placed on reality. Yogananda presents these not as supernatural events, but as demonstrations of a higher, hidden science, the science of consciousness. He's telling us that the universe is not just dead matter and random energy, but a living, intelligent, cosmic dream, and that we, as parts of that dream, have the power to change it. But if we only focus on the miracles, we miss the heart of the book. The true magic of Autobiography of a Yogi isn't in the spectacular feats, it's in the deep, unwavering, and unconditional love between a guru and his disciple. It's in the relentless search for truth, the willingness to be broken down and remade, and the profound transformation that comes from total surrender to a higher purpose. The most important relationship in the book is between Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar. And it's not a soft, sentimental relationship. Sri Yukteswar's training is tough, almost brutal at times. He is relentlessly honest, stripping away his disciple's ego, his pride, his attachments, piece by piece. He's not interested in making Yogananda feel good, he's interested in making him free. And this, perhaps, is one of the book's most profound lessons. True growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from challenge. It comes from having someone in your life who loves you enough to not let you get away with your own self-deceptions. Another key message is the idea of self-realization. This isn't about belief or dogma. Yogananda presents spirituality as a science. He says you don't have to believe in God, you can know God. Kriya Yoga is presented as the technique, the scientific method for experiencing the truths that saints and prophets have spoken about for millennia. It's a practical, actionable path. This is what makes the book so revolutionary. It takes mysticism out of the clouds and puts it into a system that anyone, from a householder to a monk, can practice. It democratizes enlightenment. And finally, there's the beautiful, unifying vision of the book. Yogananda constantly speaks of the harmony between all religions. He shows how the teachings of Christ and the teachings of Krishna are one and the same, how the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita are singing the same song of divine love. In a world so often torn apart by religious differences, this message of unity is more important than ever. He wasn't trying to convert anyone to Hinduism. He was trying to help Christians be better Christians, Muslims be better Muslims, by showing them the universal science of knowing God that underlies all true paths. So, how can we apply this in our own lives? We may not be ready to live on air or materialize palaces, but there are simple, powerful actions we can take away from this story. First, start your own search. Yogananda's journey began with a question, a deep yearning. What is your deepest question about life? Don't be afraid to ask it. Write it down. Meditate on it. The book teaches that a sincere question, asked with the full force of your heart, will always receive an answer. Second, practice the art of stillness. You don't need a secret technique to begin. Just for 5 minutes today, sit in a quiet place. Close your eyes. Don't try to stop your thoughts, just watch them, like clouds passing in the sky. In that silence, in the gap between your thoughts, you might begin to feel that deeper reality Yogananda speaks of. The book's promise is that within you is a place of absolute peace, a fortress that no worldly chaos can ever touch. And third, look for the divine in the ordinary. Yogananda saw his resurrected master, but he also saw the divine in the love of his mother, the challenge of his guru, the kindness of strangers, and even in the taste of a mango. The lesson is that God is not just in the spectacular visions, He is in every moment, in every person, in every experience, waiting to be recognized. That was a summary of Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. We've touched on the incredible stories and the profound teachings today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic of this book happens when you read it for yourself. It's in those quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This book isn't something you just read, it's something you experience. It plants a seed in your consciousness that continues to grow long after you've turned the final page. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, if you felt that spark of curiosity or that pull towards something deeper, I urge you to pick up a copy. The link is in the description. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an invitation to the greatest adventure of all, the discovery of your own self. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know that we're on the right track, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep seeking, keep growing, and keep discovering the wonders of the universe and of ourselves together.